What did you do after stripping me? You're the worst. I was stunned when I heard those words after saving a woman from drowning at the beach. But I don't regret what I did. Saving lives always comes first. The woman I rescued never thanked me, and I spent the rest of that day feeling uneasy. A few days later, I was summoned by President, Mr. Johnson, for some reason. However, when I arrived, I found the woman I had rescued. You understand, right? You need to take responsibility. What? My name is David. I'm an ordinary office worker. I can't say my university was elite, but I did get in and graduate on time, so I don't think I'm stupid. I like methodical work and believe I'd be better suited to repetitive tasks in a factory rather than the flexible roles in sales. But I ended up working for a certain company. I knew my parents wanted me to join a stable company, and they had supported me through college, so I wanted to repay them and ease their minds. When I first joined, I was placed in a department that suited me, and I enjoyed my work. My senior colleagues were kind and helpful, and I was fortunate to have great peers. However, one supervisor disliked me. To this day, I'm exhausted from the daily harassment he subjects me to. Hey, David. You'd better get this done. All of it by today. A stack of work lands on my desk. If he divided it among other seniors and colleagues, everyone could leave on time, but that's not his intention. Don't even think of saying you can't do it. Ha ha ha. This supervisor, laughing as he watches me panic, is Matt. His behavior is utterly unreasonable, yet Matt has a complicated status. While his title is only supervisor, Matt has a relative who he can't afford to oppose, the executive managing director, Tom. Matt isn't particularly powerful himself, but if he tattled anything to Tom, it would spell trouble for me. I didn't want to be fired after finally landing this job. It was a sentiment shared by the other seniors and colleagues. They were afraid of helping me and getting caught in the crossfire. Knowing that, I couldn't easily ask them for help. The reason Matt started targeting me is equally ridiculous. Wow, David's work is meticulous. The department head, Chris, had once complimented me like that. It's a common tactic to praise new employees to keep them motivated. Supervisors encourage new hires to retain talent and avoid making them feel uncomfortable. Everyone understands this, so nobody takes it seriously. Still, it's uplifting and strengthens your resolve to keep working hard. It's a common tradition. That's what I believe. After all, meticulous work is just another way of saying slow worker. But Matt happened to be around at that time and targeted me. Hey, David. Yes? Don't get cocky just because Chris praised you. He said that to me when Chris wasn't around. I can't stand anyone who outshines me. Matt said that shamelessly, leaving me and our colleagues in disbelief. Since that day, he's subjected me to unreasonable harassment. That pile of work is a prime example, and as a result, I've been stuck working overtime every day. I live alone, away from my parents, because it's convenient for commuting to work. It's a neat little apartment within walking distance of the office, close to a shopping street. It's my only sanctuary now. A cherished place where I can relax alone without worrying about anyone. Today, after finishing overtime, I stopped by a convenience store on my way home, bought a discounted meal, and returned to my apartment. After eating, I remembered that my mom had called, so I returned her call. Hello? Sorry, I'm calling late. I was eating. Isn't that a rather late dinner? Are you eating properly? How's work? Are you getting used to it? My parents regularly check in on me out of concern. But I couldn't tell them their son is being harassed by his supervisor at work. I didn't want them to worry, so I would always brush off their questions. I once sought advice from my coworkers about Matt's harassment. But all I got were apologies like, sorry, I can't stand up for you, or sympathy like, that's tough. Just avoid dealing with him as much as possible. Nothing would change. That exhausting reality left me drained, and before I knew it, I had walked to the beach just 3 minutes away from my apartment. It was a full moon tonight, casting my shadow clearly on the ground. Watching it absent-mindedly, I walked down to the sand and found a comfortable spot to sit. With the salty sea breeze dampening my hair, I just stared at the ocean without thinking about anything in particular. I was lost in thought when I suddenly heard a splashing sound. It was different from the sound of waves, so I scanned the sea, sensing something was wrong. What was that strange noise? I peered along the shore from one end to the other. Fortunately, it was bright tonight. I hoped there was nothing wrong, but then I spotted a woman in the water. I couldn't tell her exact age, but she looked young. In that instant, I stood up, threw off my jacket, sweater, and gloves, and rushed toward her. Wait! What are you doing? Wait! I called out to her frantically, but she kept going further into the water until she disappeared. That meant she'd gone fully underwater. If I left without doing anything, I'd be ignoring what she was trying to do. I couldn't allow that. Even fully dressed, I waded into the sea. But the seawater clung to me, making it hard to move. Still, I desperately searched the area where she had vanished. She was nowhere to be found. Even with moonlight, it was late at night. I stood chest deep in the water, waving my arms frantically. Hey! Where are you? Waving my arms and hoping she'd surface, I finally touched something by sheer luck. I quickly explored with both hands, grabbed firmly, and pulled it up to the surface. Long black hair emerged, and I dragged her toward the shore. Pulling an adult woman through the water is incredibly exhausting. Damn! She's heavy. Muttering under my breath, I finally got her to the shore and caught my breath. I was soaked to the skin, but the woman appeared unconscious. To make matters worse, it's winter now. Leaving her like this would lead to hypothermia. Fortunately, she was breathing, even if just barely. In the moonlight, her features were strikingly beautiful. But that was the least of my concerns. I was relieved to see that she was still fighting for her life. I retrieved my phone from the jacket I had discarded before entering the sea and dialed 911. After just 2 rings, I got through. This is the dispatch center. Do you need police, fire, or an ambulance? I felt a bit calmer hearing the operator's composed tone. Ambulance. A woman was drowning in the sea, and I've pulled her to shore. Where are you located? Long Beach, near Highway 710. Are you okay? Yes. The woman is breathing but unconscious, and she's completely soaked. There's no one else around. We're concerned about hypothermia. I live a few minutes away, and I could fetch towels, but it's dangerous to leave her alone, right? You never know when her breathing might stop. A few minutes without breathing can put someone in a critical state. No one would likely pass by on such a cold night. First, lay the patient on her side to prevent choking. Understood. I followed the instructions and placed the woman on her side. An ambulance is already on the way. It should arrive in about 5 minutes. Got it. Keep talking to her until the ambulance arrives. Okay. Since they'd be here in 5 minutes, it was best to do what I could on the spot. Worried she'd become even colder in her wet clothes, I hesitantly undressed her. Apologetically, I spread my jacket on the ground and laid her down, covering her with the sweater I had discarded. Changing the clothes of someone unconscious is hard work. The ambulance arrived while I was in the middle of this, and the paramedics saw me changing her clothes but said nothing to blame me. We're here to help. Ambulance services. Oh, I wasn't. It's okay, don't worry. You were helping to prevent hypothermia. It must be a common response to help people pulled from the freezing sea. As I finished draping the sweater over her, the woman regained consciousness. She blinked several times, glancing between me and the paramedics, frozen in confusion. She seemed unaware of what was happening. However, noticing that she was wet, wearing unfamiliar clothes, and that I was adjusting them, she realized something. No. What are you doing to me? What? You stripped me and did what? You're the worst. No. The paramedics, understanding the situation, tried to calm the panicking woman, but she wasn't listening. Instead, she glared fiercely at me. How dare you assault a woman like this? I won't let you get away with it. Despite her emotional state, I felt somewhat reassured that she could yell so furiously. She boarded the ambulance while still complaining, but before I could walk away, she grabbed my jacket. Hey, you! Don't think you're getting away. What? What's your name? Phone number? I'm reporting you to the police. Even though it seemed unfair, I calmly gave her my name and number. One of the paramedics took notes for her. "Don't worry, I think she's just upset right now." His words brought me a small sense of relief. My 911 call record should remain, and the situation would probably clear up the misunderstanding. Still, the lack of gratitude in being seen as a pervert weighed heavily on me. What a night! I thought as we parted ways. The night's ordeal left me unable to sleep, but I couldn't take the day off work on the next day. Even without an alarm, I woke up at the usual time, followed my morning routine, and headed to the office. As always, Matt dumped an unreasonable workload on me. "Here you go, today's batch," he said. The pile included tasks that were undoubtedly Matt's responsibility. To finish them all today, I'd have to skip breaks entirely. As I steadily worked through my tasks, I thought about one thing. Naturally, it was the woman from yesterday. Heading into the sea alone in the dead of winter could only mean it was intentional. There hadn't been any hint of alcohol on her breath, so she hadn't been drunk. And last night, when undressing her on the shore, I had noticed something. That woman, that skin. On her shoulder, her skin had white patches. It was likely vitiligo, a chronic skin condition where patches of skin lose pigmentation. People may have heard about it since Michael Jackson had it, which was widely reported in the news. Why does the skin lose color? The causes are mostly unclear, but research suggests a combination of genetics, autoimmune diseases, and environmental factors. I knew this because my mother has it too. Her back has large white patches on the right side. She avoided going to the beach or swimming pools where people would stare. People have a habit of staring, gossiping, and sharing about anyone who stands out for not fitting the norm. Just walking with crutches or not being American attracts rude stares, let alone different skin tones. People stare maliciously and make comments like, "Ew," or, "What's that?" It's gross. At swimming pools, they often suggest not using the facilities out of baseless fear. So, when traveling, we chose hotels with private pools. My mother always appreciated that. She just wanted to enjoy pools without worrying about others. Why should anyone have to be self-conscious just because people don't understand their condition? People can be so cruel toward those who are different. I couldn't help but think about the woman from last night. If she's that pretty, she must care about her skin. It must be tough dealing with vitiligo. If the white patches were on an area she could cover, she might wear turtlenecks, long sleeves, or arm warmers. But if her face had them, she'd have to use heavy makeup to cover it. Steroids and non-insurance covered topical vitamin D3 could be used on the affected areas, but it rarely leads to complete healing. What was she trying to do in the sea at night? I could guess, but it was difficult to put into words. Even if she sees me as a pervert, I just hope she can find happiness again. I'm likely projecting my mother onto her. Some might call me a mama's boy, but any guy would cherish his mom. The situation changed a few days later. I was suddenly called to the president's office. The only person pleased was Matt. "What did you mess up?" "This is gonna be good," he laughed loudly. I didn't know why I was being called either. But as soon as I entered, I saw that same beautiful woman seated right in front of me. "Ah." The woman stood up quietly and walked toward me. I braced myself, unsure of what to expect, but she apologized. "I'm sorry for calling you the worst that night." "What?" The paramedics explained everything. "You saved me from the sea, but I misunderstood and treated my savior like a criminal." "I'm sorry. Undressing me was to prevent hypothermia, right?" I had no idea and lashed out without knowing the facts. As she spoke, I stood there frozen, trying to comprehend. Mr. Johnson also approached to thank me. "Thank you for saving my daughter. Come, have a seat. Let's talk." I was guided to have a seat. The secretary soon brought coffee for everyone, and I finally settled down. Once again, as her father, "Thank you for saving my daughter." "No problem. I just did what anyone would. Even so, not many would enter the freezing sea to pull someone out in winter." I was so desperate at that moment that I didn't even notice the cold. Mr. Johnson smiled warmly at my reply. My name is Ellie. I'm the daughter of the company's president, Michael Johnson, and a college student." I had guessed she was young, but I didn't expect she was a college student. She introduced herself, and I was relieved to see she looked healthy. Given the circumstances that night, she had looked deathly pale, which had worried me. Now, David, isn't it? You understand, right? Yes? You need to take responsibility. What? I couldn't help but voice my confusion. Don't worry, it's nothing complicated. I just want you to befriend my daughter. Mr. Johnson's laughter put me at ease. I'd been nervous about facing some unreasonable demand. When you met me again, you didn't react strangely, did you? Ellie asked. What do you mean by strangely? You knew my skin looked different, right? Even after seeing it, you didn't laugh or stare like others do. I just want to thank you. Ellie's words made me furrow my brows. Ellie, was it? Yes. My mother also has vitiligo, just like you. What? Both Ellie and Mr. Johnson looked surprised. My mother has large patches on her back, and it's been a source of distress. She can't go to public pools for the sea. Even if she tried. People's stares made it clear she wasn't welcome. Yes. She wore long sleeves even in summer, and it was tough. But so what? My mom is a kind and cheerful person, and I'm sure you're the same. You came back to thank me face to face. Ellie, you're a kind and wonderful woman. Ellie covered her face with her hands. Did I make her cry? Yeah, that's lovely. Mr. Johnson said, smiling as he watched us. After that, Ellie and I had a chance to talk more in depth. It seemed her childhood had been mostly full of sorrow. Her skin had mysteriously turned white in places as soon as she could remember. Because of that, she was often told things like, touching her might make us sick, or she looks gross, like a ghost. She never managed to make friends. Kids often don't realize the impact of their words, so they speak freely without considering how deeply they can hurt others. Despite her complex about her condition, Ellie had fought to live with her head held high. And she finally made genuine friends after starting college. Her friend's name was Mia, and she was cheerful. Never treating Ellie differently because she was the president's daughter or because of her skin condition. But Ellie overheard Mia telling a male friend, well, Ellie can't go to the beach, and felt devastated. She felt that was how people truly saw her and wanted to swim in the ocean one last time before giving up. That's why she entered the water that night. However, this story had a resolution. After I saved Ellie and she was hospitalized for a day, Mia rushed to her side. Ellie. I was so worried. But, you said. You heard me talking, didn't you? You didn't listen to the end, did you? Huh? I was just turning down the guy's invitation because I knew you'd be uncomfortable at the beach. I shouldn't have used you as an excuse. But no one was talking about your skin. I'm sorry if I made it sound like that. Mia cried as she explained. While Mia had said, Ellie can't go to the beach, she wasn't discussing Ellie's skin condition. She was simply considering Ellie's comfort. Ellie can't go to places where many naughty people hang out. Her parents are strict, you know. Being the president's daughter and all. After misunderstanding Mia's words, Ellie sent her an email that night. I can't go to the beach with this body, right? I overheard what you said. But it's okay. Thanks for everything. Upon reading this, Mia tried calling Ellie, but she didn't answer. So, she called Ellie's parents instead. Mr. Johnson received the news from the hospital and informed Mia, who rushed to the hospital and resolved the misunderstanding. The next day, Ellie and Mia's eyes were red from crying, but their bond had deepened. I'm glad to hear that. Yes, and David. Yes? If it weren't for you, I would have lost my only true friend forever. Thank you. No, it's because you've been doing your best, Ellie. Ellie smiled at my reply. I'd like to know more about you. Could we arrange to have dinner together? If I'm the one you want, then of course. With Mr. Johnson's approval, Ellie and I started dating. Big changes also occurred at work. Matt, who had relentlessly harassed me, was finally disciplined. Everyone in our department decided, we have to act now. It's wrong to let Matt's behavior slide just because he's Tom's relative. They collectively reported him to HR. Complaints about Matt were more numerous than expected, and HR couldn't keep it under wraps. Eventually, the issue reached Mr. Johnson, who was outraged by Matt's conduct and fired him. Even Tom, who had protected Matt, abandoned him this time, and now Matt works part-time. At his job, he's often managed by younger supervisors, which has shattered his pride. He quickly turned to Tom for help, but his family now sees him as a burden. A few years later, Ellie and I got married. My mother doted on Ellie, who shared her struggles, and they spent their days happily together. They'd go shopping or recommend their favorite cosmetics to each other. Our families, co-workers, and Ellie's friends all celebrated our wedding. Ellie chose a wedding dress that showed her back more prominently. Despite revealing some vitiligo, she smiled, saying, "When I'm with you, David, I can wear something like this." It's strange, isn't it? Ellie, you're beautiful no matter what. I'll always love you. Let's live together until we're both old and wrinkly. And we made that promise to each other.